Why the world's richest people are actually cash poor. You heard that correct. Why are the world's richest people are actually cash poor? We are applying the 71 method, we are applying the 71 method to expose the structural illusion of modern wealth. By auditing the frozen physical assets of the ultra elite, we reveal how systematic logic renders massive net worths fundamentally immobile. Your favorite billionaires aren't commanding global power. Again, your favorite billionaires aren't commanding global power. They are managing a graveyard of immobile, depreciating data centers. Welcome back. Today we have to look at the ultimate fallacy holding up the global narrative. We call it the Paper King Fallacy. Again, we call it the Paper King Fallacy or fallacy. The public looks at a billionaire list and see numbers like 100 billion, 200 billion, and they assume that equals absolute power. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of systematic layout. In 2026, modern net worth is no longer tied to gold, physical currency, or anything with intrinsic portable velocity. It is tied to volatile, algorithmic valuations of proprietary software and digital infrastructure. We aren't looking at empires of wealth anymore. We are looking at the empires of stagnant data. Let's dismantle the illusion of liquidity. The elite are praised as captains of industry. They exist purely as paper kings. Again, they exist purely as paper kings. Their perceived wealth is entirely within massive blocks of stock options and digital derivatives. Here's where the friction point, where system breaks. See, these billionaires cannot actually use, spend, or liquidate wealth at that scale. Again, these billionaires cannot actually use, spend, or liquidate wealth at that scale. The moment a paper king attempts to liquidate a significant portion of their position to convert it into actual baseline sovereignty, they trigger an immediate systematic alert. The sheer volume of the sell order destroys the synthetic scarcity of the asset. In other words, they can only maintain the illusion of being worth $1 billion or $100 billion as long as they leave the money completely stationary inside the system. The second they try to pull it out through the exit doors, the market collapses under its own weight, erasing the valuation before the cash ever hits their hands. Let me reread that, and let me re-say that, please. In other words, they can only maintain the illusion of being worth $100 billion as long as they leave the money completely stationary inside the system. The second they try to pull it out through the exit doors, the market collapses under its own weight, erasing the valuation before the cash ever hits their hands. They are hostages to their own balance sheets, glorified managers of digital vaults. They don't possess the keys to nothingness. But the fallacy runs even deeper than market mechanics. This digital wealth creates a profound false sense of security that completely ignores the crumbling physical foundations supporting these so-called virtual empires. Every piece of software, every alarm trading bot, every line of proprietary code that dictates these billionaire valuations does not live in the ether. It lives on a physical hardware. It lives within millions of square feet of concrete data centers consuming massive amounts of localized electricity, relying on fragile cooling systems, and burning through depreciating server records that requires continuous physical maintenance. When we apply the 71 method to this physical infrastructure, the logic is devastating. We are tracking a massive forensic gap between virtual valuations and infrastructure decay. Tech wealth is depreciating in real time because the hardware it relies on is deteriorating. The system is forcing assets into an intentional state of immobilization because the physical grid cannot sustain the velocity required to keep these numbers growing. You are watching a digital empire built on a physical graveyard. Again, you are watching a digital empire built on a physical graveyard. Section 4, the illusion of portability. Ask yourself this question. Again, please ask yourself this question. If a crisis hits, how portable is a digital empire? Again, if a crisis hits, how portable is their digital empire? True sovereignty means the ability to move and protect value across time and space without relying on a counterparty's permission. Gold bars had portability. Again, gold bars had portability. Physical baseline assets have portability. A Paper King liquidity has zero portability. If the data center locks up, if the alarm volatility we outlined in part 2 triggers a terminal freeze, that net worth is instantly rendered immobile. Lenders who once accepted these bloated stock options as pristine collateral are suddenly realizing they are backing their loans with decaying servers and unlickable paper promises. With the institutional credibility crunch we predicted is no longer a future warning. It is an active structural alignment. The market is waking up to the reality that being an asset rich on a screen means being completely cash poor in the physical world. Section 5, the forensic investigator's verdict. As I mentioned throughout my previous briefs, my background isn't in traditional Wall Street economic street theory. My training is rooted in criminal justice, law enforcement, and criminal investigations. And when you look at the global capital structures through the lens of a criminal investigator, you stop listening to corporate public relations narratives. You stop looking at the polished press releases. You look at the footprint. You look at the evidence. You look at the data gap left behind when someone is trying to cover up a structural defect. You see, the Paper King Fallacy is a manufactured cover-up designed to keep the average Joe and gal believing that the people running the system are untouchable, which is an absolute lie. The forensic evidence paper proves they are trapped in the exact same infrastructure freeze that is coming for the rest of the market.